Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's your boys from For Those with Good Taste. I'm Matt. That's Lenny.
Yo.
Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for tuning in. We want to start this episode off the right way, so please find the like, comment, share, subscribe button somewhere in this vicinity.
Probably orient it towards the south of the screen.
Due south.
Due south.
For audio listeners, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tune in to what is going to be an awesome episode, huh, Len?
I'm excited for where we can go with this, man. We have some stuff to follow up on from last week. We have some stuff to look forward to for this upcoming week.
Yeah.
But I think we should start with the hottest goss coming out of the mixed martial arts world.
You talking the goosip?
The hottest of the goose. Yes.
Oh, man. So
the goose is loose.
It might be happening. It's finally happening.
We're hearing all around, and it seems like every other week right now we're hearing about it, maybe, but this one feels a little bit different. And what we're talking about is Conor McGregor possibly making his comeback against Dustin Poirier.
Man, I get excited about this because these rumors don't feel unsubstantiated. It feels like,
they kind of been created by the man himself, right?
The man just knows how to get things done.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, he hasn't fought since January, but yeah, he definitely has his own way to go about a fight promotion.
Listen, if someone's not willing to work with you at the negotiating table, what do you do?
Yeah, you go into business for yourself.
Exit stage right.
You break man code.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're not helping me promote what should be a very interesting fight. You won't pay me what I think I'm deserved.
Yep.
So let me make this a thing about me and DP. I'm calling him DP.
Yuck.
Let's do this charity bout, and let's make it for the people.
Yeah, I mean, so this whole story, it's as always, it's a very Conor McGregor driven story, right? And it dates back probably,
a lot of drama.
Yeah, it dates back to about January when he fights Cowboy Cerrone. He gets knocked out in a little under a minute. Gets hit with everything but the kitchen sink, as JR would say.
He beat the guy with shoulder strikes.
Yeah, we don't see that.
And then a head kick.
Yeah.
It was a really, really bad fight for Donald Cerrone.
Just blew the doors off this man, like unlike anybody ever has to Cowboy. And after that fight, he kind of says, like, I want to have a season, right? Like, I want to fight. Or maybe before he was saying it too, but either way, he was saying he wanted to have a season and he wants to get back in here right away. Unforeseen to him or unpredictable to even Mystic Mac would be that a pandemic would hit the world.
That's how you knew 2020 was going south.
Yeah, when
if McGregor's not seeing this ahead of time,
these things.
I see it, man.
Yeah,
I don't know why I sounded Jamaican.
No,
a little weird,
not
but you
in the
get
right
it.
world.
You get it.
Yeah, no, he figured it out. So he says he wants to be on a season. Pandemic hits, and basically has not fought since. And his side of the story is that this is not his decision, that he has been reaching out to Dana left and right trying to get a fight, so much so that he actually goes and leaks the DMs of one Dana White, and that is where breaking man code comes from.
You don't do that, man.
You think so, man? I think Dana White should be the last person to ever mention man code to anybody.
Dana's a bit of a bully, but this is where he gets put into his own shoes, so to speak, or gets put in his place, because Conor pulled out the trump card, so to speak, and made him have to come to the negotiating table.
The man lies to benefit like the negotiating side of the UFC whenever he gets the opportunity. Like I think we've just seen it for long enough, and I find it hard to have sympathy, and especially when you're talking like the $1 billion company versus the $1 millionaire that they've really like spurred. And that's like obviously not true. Like there's several millionaires, but in the grand scheme of things, like a company that
it's a very small percentage.
Their payment has always been questionable at best, right?
To say the least.
Yeah. So that's where Conor, we get back to this thing of him kind of just spouting out different stuff left and right. He certainly has made a lot of noise recently with fights being rumored with both Manny Pacquiao and now Poirier. Did you have any preference on that, which direction they would go?
I'm always hesitant to jump on the hype train whenever there's a conversation of Conor boxing again. Because if it's not going to be against Floyd Mayweather, if it's not, I mean, the Manny Pacquiao thing sounded interesting, but is it a fight that I want to see? I don't want to see Conor spending time learning how to box
to get his dick kicked in the dirt.
I just don't see that benefiting him in a way. He's still very young in this sport. He's got some time. I know he hasn't, fought in a while since January, but
he should realistically be in his prime, mixed martial arts prime right now.
Right. Theoretically.
Yeah.
for me, the fights I want to see are the people that are probably already booked. I'd want to see him against a Justin Gaethje. I'd want to see him maybe fight Khabib with a full camp where he's a little bit more focused.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see him boxing. That makes zero. But I understand the need to get your name out there, to put your name in the papers, be the guy who everybody is talking about. I mean, the guy came out with his own whiskey for a reason, right? He likes being on the tongue of the people, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So much though that he injects himself whenever a major fight has happened. Dana White also made reference to that this week. He was clued in about a year after the rest of the world that Conor likes bringing the attention to himself whenever he gets the chance.
What took you so long, buddy?
Yeah, it's like he lived in a different world with Conor to an extent. And to also think that it'd be off limits for Conor to go out and leak the DMs, like I think that's pretty on par with what he would do. But I think Conor saw an opportunity here because not too long ago, Dustin Poirier had an issue with the UFC, right?
Right.
They were trying to book him versus Tony Ferguson.
Which my understanding was that the fight was all but set. Like they were good on.
They both verbally agreed, right?
Verbally agreeing.
The thing we all need to realize is that verbally agree does not mean fight's going to happen. That means, hey, we're men. We're going to fight another fucking man. Like that's our job. But hey, we need to be compensated fairly first. So, Poirier tries to negotiate. He's been on a hot streak for the past few years. He's really come around. Like the stigma that he used to have, maybe back when he fought Conor, and we can get into this in a moment, was that maybe he didn't always show up in the big fight. But I think he's proven.
You're talking about that Michael Johnson fight?
Michael Johnson, Conor McGregor, Korean Zombie. I could go on.
There's a bunch of them.
He had, whenever he got to a certain level of competition, he'd fall, he'd stumble or fall, right?
Yeah.
I think he's shown in the past couple of years. He has a victory over Eddie Alvarez, over Justin Gaethje, and then got in there with Khabib, right? So he's shown that that's maybe not true any longer. And he's earned his money. He's been around the game for a long time. So I think Conor sees somebody who's maybe is a good guy. And Conor has said in the past, like he wants to reward people who he thinks earns it, right?
That's
he's
pretty
like,
dope if
he's
you
like
think
fucking
about it.
Robin Hood.
Let me bring the money to your table.
Yeah. So he looks at this opportunity with Poirier and he's like, this guy deserves a fight. He also deserves to get paid. He goes in there and throws down. Like his fight with Dan Hooker earlier this year is one of the best of the year. It's fantastic. Like it's a great striking. It's what like fans want to see. Yeah. So this is my issue with Dana White in the UFC is like, these are the guys that you've talked about forever that will pay the guys who get in there and sling the fucking leather, right? Yeah. Like that's what he's always
Those
said.
guys who are putting on the fights that the fans want to see. They're entertaining and putting everything on the line.
So this guy goes into an octagon in an empty room with Dana White and a couple fucking fat reporters, right? And he throws down for all of our entertainment during like one of the beginning stages of the pandemic, if I remember correctly. And
where the tempo really kind of needed to be set. Like, hey, this is what the UFC is going to put on display. Yeah. And they did not disappoint, man. It was a fantastic fight.
Hey, I've been here for 10 years. I want to make $500,000 when I fight. Like, I want to have pay-per-view points negotiated. I don't know if any of this is what the actual terms were. Maybe they were more outrageous. He should get paid more than that, though.
If you look at his resume and the type of fights, to your point, that he's fighting right now, he's fighting the biggest names in that division. And he's putting on really, really good fights. How do you not pay this guy?
Like literally, the definition of his job is both to promote, of course, but it is also to go in there and perform. Probably more so is to perform because, as I've been told forever, the 3 letters is what sells the UFC, right? It's not necessarily the fighters, what they always tell.
They're always about the brand.
So if he's still not at a point where he's selling to the point he should, who is it more on? Because he's put the performances out there. Are you not getting them out in front of the people the way they are? I don't know what it is, but either way, for you to paint him as the bad guy, saying like, because Dana White, I think the quote was like, there's different ways to negotiate yourself out of a fight, and basically saying that he didn't really want to fight, so he was asking for an outrageous amount of money.
There's different ways to turn down a fight, I think was the term, and he was like, you can negotiate your way out of a fight.
Thank you.
And I don't know if we've ever talked about this in the boxing scheme of things, because Dana takes a lot of jabs at the boxing,
Bob Arum,
the empire that is boxing, where you can have an 8-card fight in boxing and you won't know 7 out of those cards. The UFC has definitely done a better job at being able to put together fight cards, whether it's 5 fights, 6 fights, 4 fights that are really, really interesting fights that are going to be something that you want to watch, that could possibly grab the casual viewer. None of these guys are getting paid anywhere near what they should possibly be getting. Realistically, some of those guys are making $8,000 for a 15-minute fight.
And a concussion.
Where that $8,000 you're guaranteed that $8,000 just to fight. But then, oh, if you win, you'll get another $8,000. That's not a problem if you don't have the shittiest judging network in sports and in any industry.
Yep.
It's difficult for me to see any of these guys really being able to come out on top here and being able to see, these guys have fought before. I'd be interested to go back and see what they were making then. But to see them kind of force Dana White's hand into making this fight happen, it's not official yet, but it'd be interesting to see what happens.
As long as there's not going to be a need for a union in the eyes of the fighter, this is the closest thing we're going to get. And it seems that Conor has at least got a grasp on some of this. You think back to when he fought Nate Diaz, and there was the whole thing of Conor wasn't able to make it to what was the press conference.
Yeah.
So they tried pulling him off the fight, and Nate was basically just like, they're trying to get me to fight other people, but no, fuck you. Like, I'm going to wait for Conor. Like,
because he wouldn't fly cross country for an hour press conference that wasn't going to do anything to promote his fight.
He's promoted a million different things for this
He
company.
wanted to train.
Like, yeah, like that's not crazy.
I'm about to prepare for one of the biggest fights of my career. Let me train.
And you're going to make your money. Like, I'm pretty sure that was the same fight that he ends up throwing the Coke can or the Monster can. Like, they ended up getting their publicity without, if anything, this worked out better for them in a way, right? That happened. So either way, Conor's kind of showed along the way that he's willing to go out to bat for the B side in his fights. And that's really important because if you can raise a guy like Dustin Poirier's profile and start making him more money, that makes it easier for when Poirier goes out and fights his next guy, that he's lifting him. And look no further than earlier this past year, right? Or late last year, early this year, it was Masvidal versus Diaz.
Yeah.
But that directly comes from Diaz winning his fight against Anthony Pettis and picking Masvidal, who there was a benefit to fighting him, but Nate still is giving up his A side to bring up.
Oh yeah,
Masvidal
now Masvidal's an A side.
Yeah, now Masvidal is he got the rub, so to speak, right? And like this is where this is really important. And as long as these things happen,
anytime you can fit that in there,
just
do that.
We got the rub.
He got the rub, 100%.
That's really important, right? So I to your point earlier, like you really have to respect Conor for having the business sense and seeing that, hey, me and Poirier are in a bad. In the same, not a bad circumstance, but we're still in the same circumstance where we both want to fight, but they won't make the fight. His is more financial than mine is because his Conor has whiskey and clothing sponsors and 9,000 other things. He doesn't have to worry about the money.
He's got his own suit line.
So, hey, we'll fight charity for nothing. I'll pay to your charity for you to come out, so it's worth your time. We'll figure this whole thing out, and we can both just fight on my own
terms.
Because I have my own money to do this shit.
He's
and if they're not going
right
to do
now,
it for
dude.
me, I'll fucking do it for myself. So then that happens, and now Dana has to react. And now it comes down to your point, it's agreed. When does the fight happen? I have an idea when it makes the most sense. Do you? Maybe we're on the same page here.
I always have the idea of Super Bowl weekend tends to come up.
Is that even going to be the same weekend this year? Who knows?
We don't know, right? The Super Bowl weekend card or that New Year's Eve card is always an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think it could potentially be something that they do.
Conor is not going to be happy if it makes it to February. So Super Bowl weekend's not going to work.
He wants to fight by the end of the year.
What needs to happen right now is the card in November has just lost Cody Garbrandt. They need to put him on that card. Like, I think
Save the card.
I think Khabib is fighting Gaethje this month, right, in a couple weeks.
October 24th.
Yep, we'll be talking about that in a couple weeks,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Why not line it up so a few weeks later, at that point it's 4 weeks later, it's a month later.
Exactly.
You're going to have Conor line up, and if stars align properly here, Conor wins. And then either Gaethje or Khabib win.
Both
Because
of those
either
are gonna
one
be good
work fine
fights.
for Conor, right? As far as sellability. And this has lined itself up perfectly. And hey, maybe you're lucky if you're the UFC and the biggest contingency plan they could possibly have. They don't really need this because Khabib would just rematch. But say Gaethje beats Khabib, you have the history of Gaethje versus Poirier to go with. They have a 5-round war that they can go back on. So there's so many storylines. It just makes sense. There's no way that Davidson Figueroa and Alex Perez can.
That's who Alex Perez is the guy they want to replace Cody Garbrandt with.
That can't main event a card, right? And the issue that's here, and this is all goes back to the UFC being greedy, is championship fighters get points, and what points are say for every buy a pay-per-view gets, they get an allotted amount of that money. So like a percentage, so like $1.50 per buy. So there's sizable amounts of money that the UFC has to pay out to a champion. And when you pair up a guy like Conor, who he's going to be the person who puts it over $1 million in that flyweight championship and the Shevchenko championship fight, are not going to have a damn thing to do with it.
No, but they get buoyed
They're gonna
by
get,
the
they're
viewership
gonna
for
get
sure.
paid. And like a girl like Shevchenko, honestly, the UFC should look at this as a chance. You bump her up to co-main because she's a fucking badass.
She deserves it.
And you show off how good this fucking girl is. And the kind of what they used to do with Jan Jacek. Like Jan Jacek became famous, or as famous as she is.
She was co-maining every
Ronda
other
Rousey.
card. Yeah.
She was always on the Rousey cards. They always put her on the under of a Rousey or other big cards. Basically, because you know with these girls that you're going to get a good fight. Like they're going to come out and throw down, right? So
you know, with Valentina, you're getting a clinic of what this girl can do.
She can do, like, the thing is UFC 4. I think there's only 4 perfect fighters, and I'll try quickly to remember all of them because this is real time, right? John Jones, Habib, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko.
Boom, baby. Got it.
But like that says the talent that this girl has is like she can tap you on the ground, she can get you to the ground with the takedowns, but her real strength is striking. So what makes her fights great is that nobody wants to go to any phase with her, so she can fight where she wants to, which is the stand-up.
Brother, she's gotten arm bars in the UFC. She's
slick
gotten
as
triangle
shit.
chokes.
Yeah.
She's gotten head kicks.
Mm-hmm.
The girl can do no wrong. She is a fantastic martial artist. Doesn't get anywhere near the... She speaks like 5 languages.
Yeah.
She incredibly marketable if you think about it. Not really a huge build-up for her.
I think what you may do is, I don't know what the cards look like around that November card, but maybe you take the main event of the Davidson Figueroa main event and you move it to one of the free cards around that weekend, night. Maybe the weekend before. What I don't, and we should maybe know this. It's take too much to look it up now, but like if there's a good main event on one of those cards that fits maybe more, switch it out onto the Conor card because you don't have to pay them out pay-per-view points.
Those pay-per-view points.
And then you're only paying out Valentina.
Who would deserve it? We've
Exactly.
gone down the line.
So I think that maybe makes some sense, but I would shoot for November, if not December, because I think they also lost Usman versus, or was this the same card that Usman was on?
No, so that was the same card that Usman's on.
So they did lose something, or they have a no main event in December as well. Either one works, but I just think November probably plays a little better. 7 weeks out is enough time because Conor looks to be in fantastic shape. You know, Poirier is always ready to go.
He keeps flashing those pictures on Instagram. He's all about showing off. He shaved his head, looking like a badass.
He looks like 21-year-old hungry Conor McGregor, and I know he just plays that game like he might not be hungry. Who fucking knows?
Who knows, man? Does it matter at this point? Because if he's, I mean, we've seen him not with a full camp, and he still looks pretty good against the best. We've done a good job of kind of building up the narrative for the story. If you look at their background, since they last fought, Dustin Poirier hasn't given up any ground. That man has gone on a tear.
Oh, he's elevated himself. The weight class changed because they fought at 145. If they were to fight this time, they would fight at 55, you'd assume. You have a record of 10-2-1 from Dustin Poirier since the last time they fought. I think they fought in... was it 2016?
2014.
14. Fuck, that
September
is so
2014.
So you've had 10-2-1 from Dustin Poirier, and you have 6-2 from Conor McGregor. So both only 2 losses on their record. There was a no contest in there from Poirier. Yep. I forget which fight that was from.
That was the I want to say it was the knee. The Eddie Alvarez knee.
Oh, yes. That's what it was.
Yep.
So the Eddie Alvarez knee was the one blemish, at least that's not addressed on either record. It's a no contest. Yeah, and then he knocks him out. And so Conor has 4 title fights versus Poirier's 2 on his record there. So Conor has a little less fights, but they have been the highest of stakes. But Poirier, I was going to ask you, who do you think's grown the most since then? Do you think Poirier's outgrown McGregor at this point, or is it like
Dustin?
And I mean in terms of like where they were versus because he's never going to outgrow Conor McGregor.
No. I think skill set wise, I think Dustin was still very not young in the game, but to your point, he was fighting at 145 pounds, and he's looked head and shoulders better at 155 pounds. He's filled out really well.
It's hard to look at the weight cut and say anything because Conor obviously was very big, making a similar weight cut. But
exactly.
Poirier is one of the guys you look at and say that he's an argument for why you shouldn't cut weight.
Right, because Conor's skill set, I think, was a big reason why at 145 pounds, his power...
He didn't have to go a full 3 or 5.
He was doing work very early, and he was making himself look really good doing it. When we look at Dustin Poirier, he's fought Max Holloway. He's fought... he has a very thick resume, and those blemishes, like you said, that they're a fight against Khabib, and that other loss is a knockout against Michael Johnson. They were gunslinging, a lot of emotions in that fight between those two camps.
The Michael Johnson fight changed him maybe the most.
For the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he's come leaps and bounds. I would say he's developed more, but it's difficult to put anything against Conor right now. Conor has continued to showcase his skills, even on the ground against Khabib. Didn't look completely out of his element.
No, I think mental capacity wasn't there for him in that fight. And obviously, we're not going to give a pick today. The fight's not even announced.
Oh, we got some time.
So, but I'd say we're both extremely excited, to say the least.
To say the very least, Lenny. I'm bubbling. I'm ready to go.
Percolating.
That's a good way to put it. Absolutely. Lenny, before we get into our continuation of our last episode regarding The Walking Dead and The Walking Dead World Beyond, there's a little bit more rumors about another. I guess you could say they're the same, but different.
Same, but pretty different.
Another zombie collection or franchise. Yeah. Resident Evil is coming out with an origin movie.
Yeah, this one doesn't seem like so much of a rumor either. It seems like it's pretty confirmed.
I just like making it seem like there's gossip going on.
Yeah, we're in a gossip mood this week.
Yeah.
So it's actually confirmed. I believe they've announced the cast. I know a couple of them, at least 3 to be exact. We're gonna try and get this right.
You got it, buddy.
Kaya Scodelario.
Boom.
Killed that.
Done.
You may know her from recently Crawl, the Crocodile in the House movie.
Yeah. But she was also part of the Maze Runner series.
franchise.
Yep.
So she's had some good stuff so far. She's going to be cast as Claire Redfield, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Another one that is on there is, and his name is escaping me, white-haired dude.
You just had it.
Yeah, isn't it still up here somewhere?
Yeah,
Pull it
it's
up.
right here.
We had it right in front of us. It was so good on it. Neil McDonough. Yeah, Neil McDonough, who's like your prototypical bad guy. He was a bad guy, and I believe
everything.
12 rounds. One of them.
Walking Tall.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's a good one.
The old Chung Lee movie.
He's
a whole bunch
he's
of
a bad guy in a season of Arrow, which segues me to he's Ra's al Ghul actually.
He plays
Arrow.
Bison.
Oh, there's another one, dude. Always
Chung Lee movie. There we go.
Years now. But he also segues to Robbie Amell, who is Stephen Amell's brother from Arrow fame.
Stephen Amell gets a lot of love in the studio.
Robbie Amell recently had they had the movie come out together, Code 8.
Yep.
I think on Netflix.
Yep.
I definitely have not watched it. You?
If you listen to our last episode, not into Netflix movies.
No. This is like add this to the list of fucking Netflix movies we haven't seen.
Just one of those.
He had a TV show neither one of us watched, which is called The Tomorrow People, which is on the CW. Big TV like CW fan, never seen that
Love
show.
CW. That show isn't even close to being in my orbit.
But are you excited, man? Like, so I think Neil McDonough as Wesker, or not Wesker, Birkin is like money. That's really good.
Well, the good thing was looking at the cast. As soon as you sent this to me, I was like, oh, just based on the pictures of the cast that I see, I'm already interested. I think there's enough in here.
Because you didn't see what's her name in the cast.
Who's that?
I don't know. The one who plays
girl
Alice.
from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
No, the one who plays Alice in Resident Evil 1.
Well, yeah. So
who cares about her?
If we're gonna go into the background story. Yeah. I've watched every Resident Evil movie, whether it's a real action or if it's an animated one. Definitely going to fall on the side of the animated ones. The issue that I find with any Resident Evil movie, besides I think it might have been Apocalypse, wasn't a huge fan. And they didn't really do a service, as you could say, with those movies.
Listen, the first 2, I'll give a pass to. I'm fine with them. I like the first Resident Evil movie, and then I also Apocalypse. It's campy, but I
don't think I'm naming the right one. The one where there's the big, giant guy at the end. Can't think of his.
Nemesis.
Nemesis. There we go.
No, that's Apocalypse. That's the end of the second one.
Okay.
And like both of those get a pass. I don't love like Nemesis in that second one. Some of it, like him and teaming up, it's weird. All the other ones are trash though. I'm gonna come out and just say that they're all pretty bad.
Any Resident Evil fans out there, beware. Lenny might be coming a little hot here.
Yeah, the animated ones, to your point, are fantastic, and we could do a whole fucking episode about my feelings on those. Like I think anybody should go out and see those. D-Generation, D this and D that, the other ones.
Couldn't tell you any of the names, but I love each and every one of them.
The third one especially like is full John Wick in terms of some of the action in it. So it's like
the gun sequence.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, dude. Like
and it's one of the few where they're realistic for them reloading how much ammo they're using. It's a really good movie.
Somebody saw John Wick and was like, "We can do that with R2," and they just have Leon and Chris just go nuts. As far as the live action, the problem with those are it's W.S. Anderson who is the director. The person whose name was escaping me previously is Mila Jovovich.
Mila Jovovich, yeah.
She is just fucking fisted into a whole movie. The franchise is just taken down because this one character who has nothing to do with the actual video games has to be written in so a guy can get his rocks off, like fucking Rob Zombie in the Halloween franchise, putting his wife naked and everything.
All it was about was just putting this chick in leather and just having her shoot ridiculous amounts of ammo at these fast-running zombies.
In like stylish ways. Like she did a lot of slow motion turnaround shots.
You're telling me it wasn't Cirque du Soleil?
No, it looks
because
like
that's what you would think it was.
Yeah, it's just a big old JO fest for this guy. Like he made a fucking 7-movie franchise to get off to his wife and tell her how awesome she was. And now I'm sorry to anybody who's friends of the Monster Hunter franchise because they're just doing it again to that. Like at what point is a company like, are we going to not pay somebody to cast their wife and just force them into a fucking franchise?
That should be a rule.
Yeah, it's never going to end well. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some good examples out there. Share them with us if there are. But in this case, I don't feel like any of them are that good.
Romance on the set has only led to bad things. We saw
Talk
this
to the
with
Twilight franchise.
Sure, the Twilight. I mean, that was a really weird love triangle from the get-go.
Well, no, I'm not talking about Jacob and Edward. I know you would think about that.
That wasn't real?
No, but she was with Robert Pattinson. And then when she did Snow White and the Huntsman, she fucked the director. And that's what broke up.
Well, see, this is just like Underworld.
Dude, we're going hot goss. Hot goss alert. Hot
goss alert.
Yeah.
The same thing happened on Underworld. Kate Beckinsale.
Well, she's just fucking everything these days.
What is up? At least she's consistent.
She likes 18-year-old men.
And that's a great way to segue into new origin movie. Good cast. Does this have you excited, Len?
This is, what I hope we're going to get is just a retell. It's the same problem that I've had, like where they've never made a Metal Gear Solid movie. There's certain video games that are kind of made for movie franchises. Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil. You have Uncharted coming with Tom Holland.
I'm getting a feeling of a potential top 5 later on.
Yes, good. Like there's a good idea there. So just to name a few right off the top of my head, right? Like that there are franchises that are set up and they failed miserably with the Resident Evil one. Even to an extent, like the animated ones don't follow the video game. Just give me the fucking video games, dude. Like except for pretty much all of them. I mean, even the new ones are great. You just don't. They haven't really shown how they're tied in yet.
Just keep it like I know what I'm getting. Give me what I want. Like don't complicate it with weird storylines or try to sexualize everything. Just give it to me.
Yep. So you also have announced a animated series with Netflix.
Yep.
That is going to be, I believe there's approved for 8 episodes right now, hour-long episodes. So it's some type of mini series. Maybe it gets approved for longer. Thank you, Bailey, for chiming in. We were wondering how you felt.
She's a fan.
She's huge Wesker fan.
She was upset about all the crap we were talking about Netflix because I think she watches a lot of Netflix when you're not around.
Yeah, she has her own profile, actually.
It's outrageous.
On my TV. So the animated series is going to follow the Wesker children, actually, as kids in Raccoon City or something.
Can you give me some background? I'm not too familiar with the Wesker.
I mean, Wesker is one of the primary bad guys throughout the franchise.
Yeah, okay.
The one that always stands out for me is because I never beat the entire game and I got stuck on a point like they'll do in Resident Evil, where Wesker is in Code Veronica and he plays like a major part, but I get to Alaska and I can never beat the fucking game. It's a whole other thing.
I gotcha.
But either way, one of the primary bad guys. I don't know how his kids really play into this, but it's also going to play. It's going to play in 2 timelines. So you're going to get the early timeline, and excuse me for a moment as I attend to my dearest puppy. Kids, am I right? Okay, and we are back. Sorry for the momentary pause, everybody. And do you forgive me, Matt?
Intermissions, buddy. All the great events have them.
That's a good point. Not enough movies these days do. But as I was saying previously, 2 timelines, one following them as children, and then one of the daughters, I'm assuming just reading the synopsis to this show, One is you're flash forward like 10 years into the future. There's only 15 million people left on the earth, and there's a bunch of animals and shit that are all infected, and you're following her as an adult. What happened to the other sister? I'm gonna guess one of two things: either dead or lost. Could be
both.
Yeah. But I'm also looking forward to that. You know what I said last week. I mean, Netflix is not good for movies, in my opinion, of the action variety. But I will watch TV series. They've done traditionally a pretty good job, I think, with the majority of those.
They can do no wrong, honestly, in most of their series. Huge Peaky Blinders fan. Huge fan of a lot of the shows that they have on there. And if they're animated, even more so.
Yeah, I've never seen Peaky Blinders. I'll tell you, like, I liked the Marvel series. Like, they were, for the most part, good.
Well, I think you might be confused because Peaky Blinders and Marvel have nothing in common.
Well, I was just talking that except they were both on Netflix.
Yeah, sure.
That's what they have in common. Quite simply. I don't even know if Peaky Blinders was actually a Netflix show either. Like, I feel like that was a BBC show.
I think it started off as a BBC show
Yeah.
and then it came on to
All
Netflix.
right.
I just wanted to go hard right on your Marvel because I feel like Marvel always makes its way into
that is
lives.
true. That is true. And outside of that, for Netflix shows, I mean, you also have Orange is the New Black. There we go. That's completely separate from Marvel. It has nothing to do with Resident Evil, but it's out there.
Is this the Trust Tree?
Yeah.
Watched a little bit of Orange is the New Black.
I've seen the whole thing.
A little bit more than I care to share. But
No, I mean, I haven't seen the latest season, but like that's a really good show. I don't see. I've already shared enough. I just dropped earlier, like 10 minutes ago. I said something about fucking Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart.
yeah, you were 100% like bought in to that entire.
Oh, I mean, I just know that happened.
Yeah, you know a little bit more than you should, buddy.
Snow White and the Huntsman, first one, not bad. But then she bangs the director, and the second one just goes hard, right? Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth. And Chris Hemsworth does what Chris Hemsworth does in that movie, and it's pretty awesome.
We've definitely gone down a rabbit hole here that has nothing to do with Resident Evil. So to get back on topic, I would just say, looking at it, I'm apprehensive but optimistic. I'm hoping they get this right. Though, don't reinvent the wheel is my biggest message here. Cast good people. Follow a close script. Not too close. Give me some differences. I'm fine with that. I don't want it to be the exact representation of the video game, but there's a good outline there to follow, and then work within that guideline.
Stick to your lane. I think know what you're supposed to get out of the movie. Add some storylines. Do what you need to do, but at the end of the day, give us what the people want.
Exactly.
I think we have a really good chance to get this one right. Hopefully, cast looks good. And Mila Jovovich not being a part of it, huge win for us.
We'll get that right at some point.
But let's transition to some good zombie stuff. Because, Lenny, I got to tell you, this guy has been catching up on The Walking Dead, and it's like rekindling an old love.
Yeah? You're warming up to her, huh?
I feel like I've been reintroduced to someone that I've always known, and I just needed to get away from them for a little bit.
Did you kind of go what I thought you would, where you do have to kind of gut out a little bit of slowness there for a bit, and then it catches you back in once you want to see where these characters are going?
Can I tell you what the problem was?
What's that?
I think when I initially stopped watching the show, I was a little bit hesitant to jump into another season where it felt like Rick and the group were just going to have somebody with their foot on their throat, and it was going to be something where we're just going to see a season worth of suffering. And I didn't quite have that when I was going through season 7 with the Negan storyline. I felt like it did help reintroduce me to some characters, get to see people like Carol, always knowing that Carol was a badass, but then just getting to be able to see her in that light. It did enough for me where I didn't miss a beat. I was able to jump right back in, go from episode to episode. And I think I was able to hop over that little speed bump that you warned me about.
Yeah, how far are you at now?
So I'm on season 8, I believe, episode 7.
Okay.
Things are going down right now.
It's heating up.
It's heating up. Some choices have been made, and we're at a pinnacle right now where it's really do or die for everybody on that show.
And at this pace, I mean, you're now a season and a half from where we were a week ago.
Yeah.
You're going to be done with this in a couple weeks. Would you piggyback off my thoughts last week, now that you are a little further in again, that people should probably, and not that they have to give it another chance, but anybody who maybe left off like you might have, what would you say to them?
I would say you gotta kind of nut up or shut up.
Okay.
And I'm bringing that one back because with the show, we've always kind of known what the show is. It's going to be one of those instances, like we've talked with Resident Evil. Be what it's going to be. Don't throw me any surprises. And I think that season ending and season opener where shit really hits the fan. Spoiler alert: 3, 2, 1. Heads get bashed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a wake-up call for a lot of people that this show might be taking a turn. And some people just weren't ready for it. So I think, at least in my opinion, it's absolutely worth jumping right back into that pool because you get some closure on a lot of the characters that you're still invested in. And then you get some questions answered about the other characters. And it helps you invest a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a show that I think has always done a good job of, like, to your point, there is a lot of suffering, but they spend their time making you care about the other side too. So, like, I know we've talked a little bit off of here about, like, your feeling on Negan as a character. But do you think that's helped carry you through this season and a half? Is his, like, charisma, Jeffrey D. Morgan, you know?
He brought it.
Yeah.
He brought the X factor that it really brought me back to Shane a little bit from the original seasons, right? Because Shane
that they're the same person.
No, not that they're the same person, but Shane had some grit to him. He was about, doing what needed to be done as long as it benefited him. Negan is such a badass, and just some of the things that he says when he walks up to people and he's like, "It's shit your pants time." And then the whistle, it's like, oh man, something bad is about to happen, but it has you on the edge of your seat where it's a different element to The Walking Dead. And it brings a lot of excitement for me.
You know what he kind of reminds me of a little bit is like is the Joker. Maybe it's kind of like that Heath Ledger Joker a little bit. Is like there's a levity to the performance, and when you know when he's saying these things that are kind of funny and kooky and zany, he's gonna kill somebody like moments later, or he's gonna like violently hurt them, or make them like watch somebody else get something really uncomfortable done, and his like mechanism is to be funny about it, you know?
His ability to just have an attitude that I don't like what I'm doing, but it is a lot of
You're
fun.
making me do
it
this.
is a lot of fun that I get to do it, and it's your fault that it's happening.
It's kind of like, hey, everybody wants to be the bad guy, but so a lot of people don't want to embrace that they are, and he is like willing to embrace that. Hey, in this world, in this new world that we live in, there's people who give and there's people who take, and I'm a fucking taker.
But there's a method to it all.
Yeah.
There's
unification. Like it's almost like any bad leader in history. They're able to lead with an iron fist, but they have a destination that they're trying to get to that is in their mind vindicated or like the greater good, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's unifying all these different communities that maybe even before, like when you think about it, you knew that there was a few other ones out there, the Hilltop and stuff, but what he's done is show you
he's
even
open.
more of them, right?
And there was a line, and I can't quite remember who said it, and it might have been Jesus. Now that I'm thinking about it, but Jesus said your world is about to expand, or your world is about to open.
Yeah.
And that's what Negan has done, to your point. He's introduced us to different outposts, right? They're still part of his crew.
It's like a kingdom to an extent, right? Like,
Whoa,
it's like
you making an Ezekiel reference right now?
Yeah, well, there we go.
There you go.
But it's like I mean, you're a much bigger Game of Thrones fan than me, right? But
Yeah.
there's different houses and things like that where it's like, hey, we find out about the kingdom, we find out about the Hilltop, we find out about Alexandria, and like they all have their different personalities and
their different roles to play.
yeah. And Negan is the thing that's tying them together, but you also see that like they need to come together for that same fight, you know?
It was also interesting just to see how the different communities kind of accepted or reacted to what was happening, or what that system was that was in place. And as I'm going through these episodes, the sense that I kind of lost when I stopped watching, where I wasn't, there was so much buildup to what was going to happen that I didn't really care what happened. Now I'm at a point where I have to know what's going to happen to these people, because there's a lot of buildup to you thinking that you know what's going to happen. And if Negan's shown us anything, it's that while things may seem like they're going well, it's a hair trigger for them to really go south, and you're getting to experience that now.
You're coming right up on the stuff that I told you is where I kind of fell back in love, because I like what's going on where you are right now. And I don't remember when we've been talking about it, I don't remember exactly all the little details, because obviously, like, there's so much. Those shows are really dense, and there's a lot of little things that happen along the way. But
and my acting only goes so far, right?
Don't break that computer.
No, we're
buddy.
good.
Yeah, but you're coming up to the stuff that made me like fall in love with it, and kind of the tension that brought me back into it. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it, and to kind of look at where I'm at. So I'm obviously a lot further in the future from you now.
Well, I was going to say, how's it looking up there?
I just watched the season finale, which is kind of not a season finale because they got issued additional episodes that they're going to be adding on to this season. But kind of what was initially planned to be the season finale. And it was good. It wasn't one of those ones where they reinvented anything. And I think what they've learned over the past few years is that they did kill a lot of people. In the seasons that you're watching right now, like it seems like the biggest issue that you run into is there's not a lot of familiar faces or people you're not nearly as invested in because you killed the Abrahams and the Glens 1-3-2 spoiler, whatever.
Yeah, they'll get used to it eventually.
Yeah, whoops. But you end up with now maybe they have to play it a little safer, right? And we have to maybe find out about like saving some of our storylines and waiting for things to culminate rather than just killing people off, because now we're getting towards endgame and we don't have time to rebuild people and everything else. So maybe there wasn't as big of names in this episode that passed away or died or got murdered or whatever you want to call it, but there were some pivotal things that happened in the episode that I'm pretty excited about. Some major storyline advancements, and things that I'm like, can we get to the next season now? Because this is the tough thing of watching one episode like they put out.
And they put you on that cliff.
Yeah, like you just watch this one episode and there's just things that you want to see happen next now. That they did a really good job with that. That, hey, this is our transition out of this storyline. But you know that this other stuff's on the horizon and there's these familiar faces that are back that we need to integrate into what the world is now. You know, that you haven't seen in a long time.
They've introduced us to a new world. Mm-hmm. Where there's a lot of different possibilities. There's tons more people than we had even we had all thought that, there's tons of people out there. There's probably a bunch of people who survived. Yeah. But we've gotten to see a different way that these people survive. And then where you are right now, we're getting an even greater perspective on
growing,
what that world looks
right?
like. Yeah.
And we can move on because obviously we need to have you catch up for us to really be able to get into anything.
I'm coming.
But you're coming up quick. I know. You always come quick.
Trunk.
Yeah, there it is. But it does then branch off to what you're saying in terms of worlds growing. How about like a world beyond?
Whoa, what'd you just do there?
So I watched the season premiere as I had committed to everybody. I was going to watch the season premiere, right? And it's super interesting. I actually found myself really enjoying it. I've always had trouble with Fear the Walking Dead. I said that last week where I just always struggled, especially that first season, I think was so bad for Fear the Walking Dead. The characters were so unlikable that it's made it hard for me to ever get back. I am jumping back into that right now to kind of catch myself up on all three. But as far as World Beyond...
You're taking commitment to the next level. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm so proud.
Yeah, man.
It's fantastic.
We want to be the experts on The Walking Dead, I guess. I don't know what this is, but...
I don't know what we're trying to achieve, but we're doing it.
Yeah, and Fear is okay. I'm getting back into it, but World Beyond... The most interesting thing is it's almost like in a way they probably saw Stranger Things and saw like the success that they had. Even like It Chapter 2 with the kids and like that chemistry that you can have from an all kids cast. And now you look at what this is, and the very first thing you get out of this episode is like they're in school, like they're in like lecture halls and they're learning from like teachers in a class, and like their world to them is just normal. Right? Like there's these walls that are built up around a community. I believe they're in Nebraska, I think is what they say in the show. And they're just living a very normal life. And there's these kids that really have no idea what the outside world is like. And it's like kind of, to me, put me in that seat of when we're fans watching like any movie, but like zombie movies, for instance, you always kind of envision yourself like, hey, would I be able to survive? Or like, what would I do if I was out?
What would it look like?
Exactly.
Like, where would I be living? Where would I be hunting? Those type of things.
What this show is in a way, and obviously this isn't what the storyline is, but what it is to me as of right now in a way is like, hey, what would it be like if I was just inside of this place my whole life, but was always told what was on the other side of the fence? It's like Simba in going into the elephant like burial ground.
Yeah, we don't go over there.
Yeah, like,
you never go there.
We don't go. We own whatever the sun type, like the light touches. Don't go anywhere into the shadow world.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that, and it's like these kids are now like, hey, like we're gonna go outside the wall, and we have to grow, like, and we have to will be this ragtag group of kids going through it, and like I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah, let me get that. You're talking about it, I'm already like, ooh, what's going on?
I definitely give my stamp of approval. The kids are better than I thought they were, because that was also a fear for me. It was like, hey, are these kids going to just be annoying? But for the moment, I think I care about where they're going to go from here. The end of this episode had like a major like reveal on a character that they had introduced during the show, and it's like, hey, like, oh, okay, that's not all what we thought it was going to be. We had a feeling maybe it was going to go this direction, but she's confirmed it very quickly. And
that's
like,
not what we're...
And now where we need to watch where these kids like storylines going to go as they try to find their father, who is rumored to be in New York, that the Commonwealth, who's like the main baddie for The Walking Dead, like the end game for The Walking Dead, where this expands your world, is like, this is really explaining them in a way. And what you find out in the very beginning of the show is they don't really explain to anybody who they are, because they're in the position of power. Like they're the highest of like the
why are we gonna explain ourselves?
Exactly. So when they see like resources, in this case a girl's father was like the smartest person left in the world, and they're working on a cure or something like that, they just go and they take him. And like the daughter's not able to communicate because nobody inside of the Commonwealth can tell people outside of the Commonwealth what goes on there. And it's just, there's a lot of mystery there. So a lot of intrigue for me. I'm really excited. Hopefully, like, I mean, you don't want to jump ahead, obviously. So like you have to get through The Walking Dead.
I mean,
first.
You've teased me a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I have to, be disciplined and commit.
You could, in theory, the problem, like for you jumping forward and watching this, and for anybody, this isn't just you specifically, right? So like as far as just starting, if you haven't watched from season 7 or 8 and now you hop into World Beyond, it's just going to explain things to you about like Rick and shit like that you don't probably want to know
because you haven't finished it.
Yeah. So I would grind it out, everybody. Get to the point where Matt's
it's worth it
and jump back in, and so far, so good on World Beyond.
And that's good to hear, because it's so far so good in The Walking Dead right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to ending that journey and jumping on board with you. I may dabble a little bit in fear, but I don't know if I'm ready yet.
Cool. I did have a bullshit movie of the week recommendation. Whoa. And honestly, right now, it's I need you to look it up because the name is just escaping me. Look up Tom Sizemore for me. And anybody out there who's unfamiliar with Tom Sizemore, just go look at his cinematography that he's put out for the past 30 years of his life. And you'll see a guy who looks like he's constantly on a coke binge. If you just went to his IMDb, though.
I gotcha.
It's right there, and we'll be able to look at
like, computer.
It's called like Apocalypse 2021, or like Freeze Apocalypse, or like the Frozen Pandemic.
That is a young-looking Tom Sizemore on his IMDb. Yeah. That is ridiculous.
Good-looking guy. He's been in good movies too, which sucks. Like looking at it, Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, like some good movies there. But either way, so the premise of this movie, while Matt tries to figure out the
way the internet works,
the name of it for me, is there is a conveniently a pandemic in the world, right? And they're trying to get a cure, and they're trying to build a cure for this thing that doesn't have a cure. Does it sound familiar to anybody else? So there's this pandemic going on, and they figure out a cure, and they have to get it across the United States. So they go ahead and they send somebody on a flight. But during this flight, all of a sudden, we're dropped into the day after tomorrow. And I know this is fucking crazy.
What?
So they couldn't just have a pandemic movie for a Tom Sizemore movie. They end up giving us this movie that is essentially
a movie within
a national disaster, like a natural disaster movie about the world freezing over at the same time as a global pandemic. And those two things together with Tom Sizemore, I struggle to find anything better. Okay, so just to put a bow on this for the world. The movie that we're speaking of in your bullshit movie recommendation of the week, because I know you all have come back for this specific.
It's the only reason I stuck around this long.
It's called Apocalypse of Ice. The name basically writes itself. I don't know why I couldn't just think of that before. Apocalypse of Ice.
Why does it sound like the Ben Stiller fake movie from Tropic Thunder?
Because Tom Sizemore probably just saw that movie
and was like, you know what? I got a good idea for a movie.
We take the idea of that, but we put it in a pandemic.
Yes.
So Tom Sizemore, B-movie king, drops a B-movie classic And if anybody out there has the time to watch it, about 85 minutes, I suppose, go ahead and give it a shot. Let me know if I should give it my time, because I'm currently catching up on Steven Seagal bullshit movies. So,
and there's a lot of them. I was gonna say there's a handful of them. But
I mapped out my next 3 weeks, man.
Is he still making terrible movies?
He wouldn't stop? Rob Van Dam is in them now.
Rob Van Dam, dude.
The whole damn show.
No way. If he's doing movies with Steven Seagal, is anybody safe?
Not since Jean-Claude Van Damme last did a movie with Steven Seagal.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is blowing up on social media right now. If you haven't noticed, that man is doing anything and everything he can to stay relevant on social media.
Well, that seems like a good place to leave people, a cliffhanger. Next week, we'll be coming at you with hot goss about JVCD.
Hot clips?
Jean-Claude. Fuck, I got it backwards.
JCV. It sounds like a terrible TV company if you think about it.
It is a TV show, actually. He has a TV show called that. We're just going to go off.
Where are we going with this?
What the fuck?
It's okay, buddy.
Let's
Terrible movie recommendation of the week.
Yep.
Great episode today. Tons to look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next week. Doesn't matter.
Get on The Walking Dead, bitches.
Get on The Walking Dead. Play catch up. Season 8. Episode 7. Lock your eyes right here. Subscribe.
Resident Evil, bitch. Conor McGregor.
Comment.
Dustin McGorry.
Best Tom Sizemore photo. And we're out.
Money.
Boom.
Hit us in the chat.
Y'all.